Welcome to another episode of The Couch Coaches. A few weeks back, we mentioned that we are now pivoting to bringing in experts in different domains and going to talk about, things how people can learn about the field and they can learn about entrepreneurship and also build their career around it. So with that, we have our first guest and we are really excited to invite him to the show. So Priyesh, over to you.
Hi, the Indian government has passed a new bill on data privacy. In this episode, we will discuss what it entails for companies, startups, and entrepreneurs, and when the bill is enacted as an act and the rules are laid on, what it will give us in the in to face how this field of law will be helpful for students who want to pursue a career in this field where when India is growing digitally. This episode is partnered with our startup PS Ventures, which is in stealth mode, and later on in the episode we will talk about it. Now, introducing Bharat of KRIA Law, India's top patent, trademark, and corporate law firm. Me and Bharat go back 29 years. We were classmates in college. So, over to you, to Bharat, to introduce yourself and KRIA Law.
Uh, Thanks, Rama. Thanks, Priyesh. It's been a pleasure having known you for all these years, almost more than half of our lives. It's only fewer number of years we have not known each other. That's seems that we have been around for a long time, not on the planet, but with each other's company as well. I'm Bharat. I am founder of KRIA Law. It's a firm based in Chennai. It's a law firm specializing in intellectual property, data protection, privacy, information technology, e-commerce, and entertainment law. Anything which is intangible, we touch upon it. Um, by way of background, I'm a Chennai boy. Finished schooling and college graduation in commerce in Chennai, in Vivekananda College. Not far away from where I sit, two streets away. The schools and the colleges are all in the neighborhood. And then I finished law from Pune University and then started my career in Delhi with a Delhi-based law firm, Anand & Anand. I was there for 20 years. I relocated to Chennai in 2009 and set up that practice, grew that regional office from a 4-member team to about 20-plus member team. And after 20 years of serving that firm on the council of senior partners as well, I moved on to set up KRIA Law in 2021 between the two pandemics. When they say that empty vessels make noise, empty hours of non-working started making me think as to what new can be done in the next part of my career. And that pivoted on to birth of KRIA Law, literally with only about 3-4 of us. Today, in the last almost 3 years, come March 2024, we would finish 3 years, but we've kind of grown into a team of 26 with about 16 lawyers and 10 support staff, and still growing. And I know I was apologizing to Priyesh and Ram for the delayed start. You wouldn't know, but was because of these incessant ripples of meetings which keep us away from normal life here. But not to complain much. That's the long and short of where we are. But what Priyesh said is true. India is one of the largest populated countries in the world. Probably we are the largest right now, overtaking China last calendar year.
Yeah.
We're probably 1.2, 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion possibly. And my last census numbers are back, but
No, you
We,
have to only listen to Modi. That's all.
yeah, I mean that makes us the world's biggest market, not for all products, but most of the products in
Mhm.
terms of commerce, physical products, services, and what last 9 years of existence of the current government and the ones preceding it also is something what the digitization of records, digitization of transactions, opening up of banking for the common man, the the persons who were far away from formal economy started bundling into formal economy.
Yep.
All these move on to collection of data. You might think of what is data. We will all come to it in a bit, but eventually India realized the need that we need to catch up, and so we have a formal law. If you look at what data is all about, data is any information.
Yeah.
And the new law is not about all kinds of information, but it's about personal data. And personal data which has got digitized. So it's digitized personal data. So it's DPD, digitized personal data. So DPD is there. And then
Correct.
protection. And then add a protection to it. So it's DPDP and then an Act A.
Yeah.
So it's digitized Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which is DPDP Act of 2023 in August, not far from now. In 5 months back, we had the government pass it both in the Lok and the Rajya Sabha. So we do have a statute, but the rules have just been notified for comments. Once all comments, suggestions, amendments, finality happens, there are many multiple stages which would happen in terms of when will it become implemented. We have an enacted law. We have a proposed set of rules. Think of law as the machine, the rules as the fuel to the machine to start working and churning out. So the fuel goes into the car or the automobile to charge it up and then start working. So we know how the automobile of DPDP Act looks like. The rules have to be put in, about 20, 30 rules might come out. We can talk about it later, but that's where we are. But we are in a fantastic part of India's growth story, and this is much needed statute for augmenting it and kind of elevating it to the next level.
So
I think
when
one thing
do
is just
you think? Sorry.
no, what I meant is even looking from outside, the growth in India in almost all phases, right? Companies becoming big, small businesses getting a lot more equipped. It's been just exciting to watch. So it's great that we're getting into a bunch of compliance and areas around privacy. One question that popped in my head was being in tech, anytime we talk to companies around privacy, GDPR always comes around. And when you mentioned about privacy, individuals, and the act and protection, is it very tied to GDPR from a concept standpoint, or is it very different?
So
Uh,
before I answer,
One
yeah,
second. GDPR is the data privacy laws in Europe
Correct.
for our viewers to know. So continue, Badar.
no, so it's okay. GDPR stands anyway for General Data Protection Regulation, which across EU, that's one of the most early forms of law which came in any part of the world. So everyone looks up to it. And it's quite comprehensive because 20 plus countries have embraced it, though they are in a common platform of the European Union. It's good to always look up to it because it's the older statute. I don't. If you ask if it's the best statute, maybe not, because each geography, each economy, each country, each socio-economical, political standpoint are different. That's why laws are different everywhere. But before I answer the difference between GDPR and Indian DPDPA, we need to understand what is data, what is personal data, why is digital personal data relevant, so on and so forth. So if you look at data, I was speaking at a different forum, but I was giving the same kind of an example. Is when you are born, you have a birth certificate. Your data starts from there. Whether it's physical birth certificate or an e-certificate or an e-card, whatever happens, the time when you were born.
Sorry, I thought in India the first data is to make your horoscope.
Exactly. So that precisely, right? So modern horoscopes are there. Electronic horoscopes are also there.
Yeah.
So it's either or, right? Or it's not either or. It's all of the above.
Yeah.
So what is data is any information, and personal data means any information relating to a person, and it's personally identifiable to a particular individual, whether it's your date of birth, your name, your sex, date of birth gives away the age, but your sexual orientation, your medical condition, so on and so forth. There is privacy is a bit different. We'll come to that later. But personal data is any data which can identify you as a person and personality or your preferences, etc., including financial data.
Yeah.
And
there is a reference point to you for all the data.
so, and when these personal data is in physical form, the statute does not touch you. But in modern day, anyone who you and I are sitting across miles and thousands of miles apart, everything is digital. Everything gets translated. I auto signed into Zoom and then came into this call right now.
So one question. So my parents have all their medical reports in printed in a file. Okay, so this act doesn't go to that, but if they digitized that into a electronic form and give it to me as a app creator, then that act comes into play.
The answer is correct, but the actual reality is it was printed from a computer which belongs to the hospital. So the hospital had it electronically created and then printed in physical form.
But we don't know whether they sold the data or not.
So the data exists in digital form. What you are given home is a physical copy of a digital data.
If the data is not stored by the clinic or the hospital, then the act doesn't come into play or is already in play.
So this act is limited to digital personal data, not personal data. It's DPDP, right?
Okay.
So, but the presumption is most of the personal data for a purpose of churn is always digital or mostly digital, right? So I was starting with your birth certificate, or you started with the Kundali or your Jadagam. And then you take that and go into your school. And then the school absorbs all these data into their system. And then it goes into CBSE or state board or metric. They give you a secondary school leaving certificate. That certificate is taken and gone to college. From college, you will go to PG. From PG, you will go to employment. The same set of data to all your past, present, future employers will be flowing around.
Yeah.
Or same data which you will go into any app in the sense of your online e-commerce app. I don't want to name online e-commerce because geographically it might be different, or it might be a cab hailing app.
We can use Amazon.
Yeah, it has your photo, it has your name, it has your sex, it has your credit card details, it has your past trips, present trips, future trips, what past orders. So all these are not generic data, they are personal data, they are and digitally available personal data. So that's the premise and context I want to give you. Only such digital personal data are covered by the statute.
Okay.
So I think
And
one question, Bharat, is the intent to make sure that nothing should get compromised and people should not be taken for a ride, or is it just that what is the core reason of bringing this into play right now at this moment?
core reason is the individual.
Hmm.
What we are protecting is the individual's right to privacy.
Hmm.
You have a right to control where your personal data should go, who should use it, how it should be used, how long, what purpose, can it be churned, can it be upscaled, can it be moved out of geography, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
So it's more empowering the individual. And the most important difference to answer Priyesh's earlier question between the difference between GDPR and Indian DPDPA is the consent part.
Hmm.
So,
So,
two questions on that before you continue. In Germany or Europe, it is opt-in for everything you go digitally. Be it a email or a email subscription or a app, you have to opt in and give the service provider that you are willing to get something from him. Okay. Whereas in India now, as of now, it is opt out in even in the US. So that will that change one. Second one, will the act now I can get 5 lakh data sets for 15,000 rupees in the black market in India and use it however I want for my marketing stuff for my app or retail or whatever. Okay. So how will both of this change, or that is, are they thinking about a change in this?
so I'm glad you brought it up. It has to be opt-in in the
Okay.
sense that the companies who are handling data or any processor or any data fiduciary, what we call it under the statute.
Yeah.
I don't want to bombard with jargons here, but I will come to those players which are recognized under the statute. Is that there are about 4 or 5 players. The individual is always the first player because it's he, she, or they. In modern languages, we need to use all forms. Have to give out a consent on for what purpose the data is being taken from them, and the person receiving has to prove that they've had that consent in a clear form and show what purpose, what date, how long can have they received the consent for.
Yeah.
If there is a violation beyond the purpose time period, then you can be penalized. So there is a data fiduciary, in the sense a person who's collecting data is a data fiduciary, and then there is a data processor. So as a fiduciary, I might be collecting data from you, but I might not have the bandwidth to process the data, so I might outsource it to a processor for churning the data into more meaningful, interactive, for my liking.
Yeah.
So that's a processor. So that's a third person.
Yeah.
And then there is a consent manager. Consent manager comes in
One
between
second
the
for
individual.
our one second for our viewers. The processor can be any SaaS company which is sending out emails on your behalf of the emails you had collected from your subscribers. Okay, continue.
Correct. So as I said, there is an individual, there is a fiduciary, there is a processor, there is a consent manager.
Yeah.
The consent manager is a new layer which GDPR does not have.
Okay.
It's very unique to India, where we don't know in what form the consent manager would be, whether he's automated government authorized service provider or whether he's an individual or in what form the consent manager would be. But the consent manager would manage the consent of the individual for multiple. So it might be an app sitting on my phone or laptop or device, and my consent manager will speak to all other apps.
Yeah.
And
That is a app in Germany where you can download it. It will scan through all your machines or the phone and tell you this is are the apps you have. Tell us what you opt in or opt out now. Just a click, and then it will opt out of all the things we want, and you pay a monthly sub for that app to be live.
I mean, see, even in
yeah,
the cloud systems, right, there are ways by which you can scan multiple digital assets, see if it is compliant, are there any risks that it poses, right? So looks like that's going to be now be required for somebody to follow as they go through this particular process. I don't know if you touched on this already. When is this law going to get into act, and how should people who already collect data, when should they start being compliant?
so we are here in January of 2024, and it's a time when the big elections are a few months away. So what happens is a lot of times, just before the elections, there is a freeze on when the laws can be implemented, cannot be implemented, what can be flowed, what cannot be flowed. We have had the law passed and it's enacted. That's behind us. Both the houses have passed it, but the rules have just been rolled out, and we need to come out. I mean, when we means all the stakeholders and the have to come back with comments and amendments in the next couple of weeks. But there is no clear indication as to when it might hit the floors of the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha for it to be implemented as the final set of rules. Again, it's very primitive. We were expecting about 15 to 20 sets of rules, because if there are so many players, each of them will have a set of rules on how this law should be implemented. There'll be set of rules for fiduciary, there'll be set of rules for processor, there'll be set of rules for consent manager, and then there is a mega fiduciary processor as well, where the large scale data processors are also there. So it's not in concrete. We don't know when it will come. It might seen in the last few years how laws are enacted in a jiffy. It might come on a Sunday as well. You never know. When the world is sleeping, India awakens. So and so are the parliaments and the laws which are passed. But hopefully with due consideration. But having said that, there is no clear indication on when it will be rolled out. It will be in phases. It will be in parts. It won't come all in a go. So I would personally believe not before mid of this year.
Got it.
I mean, the elections are in April, and then portfolios, allocations, they'll settle down in April and May. So by June, July, it's likely that there might be some, all of it would be implemented. I mean, it'll be a full working machine by mid of 2024, not before.
So, as a startup or an entrepreneur, what should I keep in mind if I'm going to start up, or I've just startup up now? When the rules are implemented, what should I keep in mind to change or refactor the entire thing, my model? Because Jugaad is so much common in India with data. So, what should I care about?
Look, gone are the days where we can use the word Jugaad. I mean, I still love that book on India and Indian Jugaad. Brilliantly written. That's what kept us in the 70s and 80s and probably the 90s as well. Which is homegrown solutions to a lot of problems which are in the mass scale. Right? Having said that, it won't fly 2024, 2025. I mean, we are pivoting at a stage. When I say we as in the country,
Yeah.
it's important that startups start realizing that they start being compliant.
Mhm.
Uh, what is the law? What should we do? How do we be compliant about DPDPA Act? To start with, introspect, do an internal audit. If you want help, persons like us, or there are DPOs, digital protection officers, data protection officers would be, they are hordes of DPOs who are quitting in-house jobs, coming out as, you know,
Consultants.
private professionals, service persons. And it's unbelievable. I mean, last 6 months, I've been interacting with so many DPOs. It's unbelievable. The exodus from large corporations to private practice. So you conduct an audit of what data you have, what subset of the data is digital personal data. Have you got the consent? And if so, what was the consent meant for? Put systems in place to understand that, to start with now. I don't think it's a very hard task, because most startups who are in the digitally enabled platforms, e-commerce, online, if they are onboarding clients online, if they are servicing clients online, most of them are going to be having digital personal data, whether of their own employees, whether they're of their clients, or if it is number crunching startups, then it's all the more important. If it is B2C, it has to be B2C. DPDP might not be affecting much of B2B guys, but B2C, because it's personal data, because it's digital personal data, everything is to do with an individual. So of course, yes, B2B as well, because when you're a processor and when you're a fiduciary, it does come into play. But start with an audit, start small, understand what data you have, what nature of data you have, start understanding, study that data. Where is it residing? Who are all having copies of your data? Do you have a proper system to protect its integrity? Have you checked the validity of the data? And do you have consents of each individual whose personal data you have, as long as they are able to identify with the data an individual? For example, for medical records company, or companies like Practo, which are connecting patients to doctors, or microfinance companies, like one of our common friends, Swasti, or we have so many fintech players who are fronting a lot of insurance selling, upselling, or better credit rating, and so on and so forth. All these startups are heavily dependent on third-party personal data. So internal audit, find out if they have consent. If not, start cleaning up that. And it's more introspection. See what is in your cupboard.
Got it. So the other question I have is, when somebody says that, hey, what are you doing with my data? When a consumer raises that concern, uh, what does the system have to come back and tell them? It has to tell them, here is the consent I got from you. Here is how I'm storing the data. Here is how I'm not sharing with others. Is that something that they have to do as well?
So there is a tribunal, as in a whip. There is going to be a body, a legal body, which is going to be overseeing compliance. And the structure of the tribunal, data protection tribunal, is not yet fully developed. They've just said that there has to be a enforcement mechanism. So at each level, the compliance will be checked, and each level, if any violations, will be penalized. So to what level? The penalties are going up to a few lakhs to a few crores. When I say a few crores, it's about 250 crores or so. So large corporations can be penalized too. That's the higher end. Right? So for a mid-sized company, it might decimate the entire bottom line or the top line, or both. But be that as it may, it's a serious statute, and it's India's time to show that we are cleaning up. We are not We are not a LPO, BPO, churning data for the Western, Eastern world, or a call center, scamming, phishing, skimming cards. That's not going to happen anymore.
I think
This is the time to clean up.
that has gone to Southeast Asia, that was Vietnam or Thailand. Say I'm a startup churning data, okay, to uh, for any use, okay. So you, Rama, are set are persons in that data, and I have the model, ML model or whatever, which churns the data. So, and you both, after the rules are and the act is enacted, don't consent for me to keep the data. So then, should I pull the old data out and change my model, or it is from that day when the rules are enacted or rules all read on that the act comes into play?
So it'll be prospective. They won't. I hope it is prospective. They would have a. They would say these are the set of rules. They will come into implementation from such a prospective day, not retrospectively, not immediately, because the mechanisms which they would be prescribing would take a lot of time or efforts for it to be implemented. And that's what even EU did with GDPR.
Yeah.
They gave timelines to implement hopefully that would be the case here as well.
Mhm.
And that would be the most prudent way of rolling out something such a massive one for 140 crore, 1.4 billion persons. It's doable because they had. So India is, when I say formalized, the story goes around the table that they brought in your biometrics, they brought in Aadhaar, they brought in UPI, they brought in banking to everyone. So it's most digitized country in the world. I mean,
And
not
I
many
think
understand that.
I think the consult manager will be a government app.
Yeah, if that be the case, that will be wonderful. If it's private also, in someone's hearing, they might make some money. Good for them. Even if it's sent to a consent to a, I don't know what the apps in Germany charge. You just mentioned that there's an app and they do charge you some monthly retainer, and that's possibly part of public-private partnership play. Otherwise, it won't be. You can't roll out like the way it was done.
PS Ventures is a platform to connect startups and SMEs with corporates and vice versa, giving them the solution, growing the startups and SMEs in their market or other markets throughout the world, so that we can make the solution of the startups available worldwide and grow these startups. It will also engage universities to get the research, their talent, and ultimately investors on the platform to invest in the startups or in SMEs. That is PS Ventures now. It is in stealth mode. If you want to know more about it, I will give my email in the description box below so that you can email me.
I think that's a good pivot to the next section, right? When these changes come in, especially for different roles and compliance, then opportunities just start showing up in the industry in general. So maybe if you can just talk through how do you see about these opportunities for people who are starting off, right? Maybe in the 10th grade or in 12th grade, picking up law. How should they look at this field differently? And then talk through others who are already working today, how should they pivot and take advantage?
And one more, maybe somebody is in first year or second year of law. Why should they come into this field and not go into civil or criminal or whatever?
So, since it's a new statute, obviously there will be a large surge in demand for data protection officers, data protection legal officers. There'll be positions which will come out, which will be new profiles which will be created. That's definite. That's definite to happen. Because every time there is a new law, there is a new practice which comes around it. That's always there. And the scope is immense. But the surge would be huge for at least the first 5 to 10 years, after which it kind of will settle down. Because back in the day, when in the 90s, when I was doing law, IP was possibly limited to 40, 50 practitioners in the country. And today we have about probably 100,000 easily. So for a person who's listening from school time, the opportunity is always there in the tech side also on data. Right? So there are data analysts, there are data engineers, there are data processors. So data as a science and engineering has become very mature because that's been going around right from what you want to call it as metadata and understanding how data works from the tech side of it. For the first time, it's going to pivot and start using the tech side towards the law side, and that's going to be a marriage of law and technology, which is very good because when chemistry and law come in, it's pharmaceutical patents. When mechanics and law comes in, it's automobile patents. Therefore, when data and law comes in, it's data science law. So it's going to be a new day, new complete green field for lawyers, which is very good. How it's going to change the way marketing is done is also important. I don't know whether you asked this as a question, but it just occurred to me that imagine in current, for the marketing side of startups, if you are in the marketing or advertising space, and you're selling clients that, oh, give me $100,000 and we will spend it on clicks and pop-ups in Facebook and pop-ups in Instagram. That's not going to happen anymore because of the consent. If I have not given consent for my personal data to be used, I don't want unrelated advertisements. When I'm speaking to you and my phone is listening to our conversation, it will start sending advertisements relating to data protection, at least in India. I don't know in the US and Germany it works, but it also works elsewhere. I speak about Harley Davidson to a friend of mine, I get Harley Davidson products getting pushed. So those would be gone. In the sense, if I have not given consent to that unsolicited, unrelated advertisements and marketing, which is unrelated to me, that will be gone. Which means it's better for the marketers. Marketers will not having to target 100,000 persons. They will have to then say, oh, I want to sell 1,000 Mercedes-Benz cars in India. How many are willing to buy luxury cars? So I would have given consent for my data to be given to luxury car segment. Then it would already come to me. And I know my target customer rather than hitting and missing 10,000 guys and selling one car. So it'll be more targeted. It'll be more precise rather than a hit and a miss.
I think the time to relaunch Edged My Loyalty is it's coming. For viewers who do not know, It's My Loyalty was my startup, and Bharat was my lawyer for that startup also. That catered to personal information of the people who had consulted to give it so that we can rate them for retail. So, yeah.
So I think what you're mentioning, Bharat, is interesting, which means college curriculum and everything could also have impact where they may start a new field and teach people not just about law but also in the marketing side. How do you target folks and even the technology tool sets that they use today, rather than slamming the market, could be a lot more discreet and so on.
Absolutely. It's going to be a completely new world. There are some political parties who've already taken advantage on targeted marketing. You know, put it mildly. I'm not talking about what happened in UK and US allegations, but generally, that's how you can have a targeted audience. The consent which I give out limits the number of things I want to be bombarded with. On the reverse side, the marketer will know I don't want to bombard unknown persons. I will bombard only those who are interested.
Correct. Yeah, I
So,
think it drives a lot of efficiencies, right, on both sides. You know exactly who's looking for a product, and then you can go after that person. Now, for somebody who's listening to this, let's say that they're working in a law firm and they are like 3, 4 years experience, and now they say, "Hey, this field is interesting. How do I move into this era? What should be the baby steps that they can take to become an expert in this domain?"
Oh, there are wonderful certification courses online by the Data International. There is DIPP courses, so the Data Professionals DPP courses. So you can look it up. There are fantastic globally certified courses which go around. They start from what is data, where is it stored, in what form, how does the science work, what is the history of data in the pre-digital world, in the current digital world, what is GDPR, what ought to be, what is consent, how does consent affect, can you change your consent? If you change your consent, on day one, you might say, I don't like orange. On day five, you might say, I love orange. So consent is very personal. Consent is very individualistic. So there would be a lot of interesting courses. As I said, the DP courses, data professional courses. You should look that up. And I sincerely hope if not all, most of the colleges would have already started blending it into their curriculum already. But the point is, with not many experts, you might not have professors who are experienced hands in the relevant field. So it will be more theoretical, and probably after the first generation comes out, it might be practical as well. Having said that, I would say there are about 15 to 20,000 data professionals already in India, which is not much, but it's a start.
Got it.
if I'm in, say, sales or marketing or other careers, and if I want to change to this, do I need to do law, or can I do these courses and come to your firm or any firm as a data expert or data privacy expert?
So the data professionals need not necessarily be lawyers. They can be technologists turning into data advisors as well. But when you want to give legal advice, you need to be a lawyer. You can advise from the side. It's like a finance advisor who need not always be a chartered accountant. But if you need to have an audit done, you need to have a chartered accountant who is CA path in India. Similarly, so you might have a CWA who is capable of doing an audit, but he can't sign off. She can't sign off. Right? Similarly, you can be an advisor, but you can't sign off on opinions or advices or legal matters or represent in a forum or before the tribunal.
So, last question before we wrap up. What is the overarching protection for the consumer. Okay, for GDPR, I can use a lawyer and send you that you send me a unsolicited email. Okay, and maybe charge you €1,000 or whatever. One, that is one. Second thing, um, say Chat GPT. Now it is the main, or I think New York Times or whatever has put a case on them, saying they Chat GPT used their information and gave it to users. So I'm a user. I have to sign in into Chat GPT, and all my searches or whatever they use for their ML to make it better. Okay, so is that private data? Because I'm not giving them my date of birth or whatever. It's a email and a sign up. One. Second, how will the rules follow for Chat GPT in this case? Third, how is the consumer protected?
So, as I said, consumers for the first time with privacy laws like this would be the king. They will be in the driver's seat rather than being in the passenger seat being driven around. They control the direction in which their data goes up, right? So these are, imagine large data collectors had the better say of what they could do all these years.
Mhm.
But suddenly we have a seat in which the individual can switch it off.
Mm.
I can say, consent manager, I'm not giving consent to anyone.
Mm.
Right? Exceptional cases might be national emergency, medical emergency, so on and so forth. So that's the difference in the consumer's hand. If there is a violation, you can write to the tribunal or you can escalate it. There will be mechanisms under which violations can be reported.
Mhm.
Persons who are found to be in repeated violations will be escalated in terms of the quantum of penalties as well. What was the other question you were asking?
Chat
Is
GPT and my
ChatGPT. Look, ChatGPT is what is given into ChatGPT may not. I mean, it's subjective. I might write and say I am Bharat, 46-year-old male lawyer in Chennai. My date of birth is so on and so forth, and I have these medical conditions. Do I have to continue being a lawyer, or should I pivot to be a data protection officer? It might come and so I might feed personal data as well.
Hmm?
It might absorb personal data, keep it within it, and then churn out an advice which is only related to the question.
Mhm.
What you do with the personal data is what we are talking about here.
No,
But
but the ML
you've
model.
consented, and you voluntarily given out what you want to give out.
Mm.
So
Okay.
it's all in your hands.
Okay.
The both the gun and the bullet are in your hands. You need to shoot where you want to shoot. So it's
So I think Priyesh said last question and asked several questions, which means no, I have to ask questions, right? I think my last question would be, see, thinking about trademarks, patents in this domain. If somebody were to say, hey, this is a new area that is emerging, where can I look at innovation and create some kind of unique IP around it? What are opportunities? What can be patented and what must be patented? Some thoughts from your end.
I've really not given a considered thought on what is patentable in data science because it's already as a science and technology and research and development on data has been there ever since data was born, right? That's already in a mature stage insofar as data crunching is concerned.
Oh, I
Uh,
meant in this domain, when this whole act comes in, can we do anything around processes or specific
Oh, of
tech?
course. Oh, so you mean to say the compliance part can be automated because while we have 1.4 billion persons suddenly given the opportunity to do what they want to do with their consent on their personal data, the remainder of the corporations are the ones who are collecting it who are, as the fiduciary, processing it and then churning it further. So those are the ones who are going to be more concerned about compliance. So we need to study the statute, procedure, requirements, rules, forms, processes, and then find out what is compliance, what all should we do to be DPDPA compliant entity. Like GST, a lot of new apps would come for GST, filing monthly, filing compliance, collecting forms, collecting data from my clients, whether they file GST returns, which will match my GST return. For those who are not understanding GST, it's general sales tax in India. So if I render service to Rama or Priyesh, I raise an invoice on them, including general service tax. So therefore, there would be a lot of compliance. Every time there is a data, there would be a layer of consent which is required. Yes, there is a consent manager, but internally you need to have processes to save data, categorize data along with consent, and process them in the manner in which consent was given and the period. And so I would say compliance is a huge area in which persons can look at opportunities to work on solutions, work on apps, work on opportunities. It's going to be huge.
Got it. Thank you.
So it's a wrap. It is 45 or 50 minutes. Thank you, Bharat, to come here. So I will link the Bharat's website in the description. If anybody wants to contact them, you can go to the link and contact KRIA Law for any services. Do mention PS Ventures that he is aware that it came out of this conversation, so that we can track whether this conversation was helpful for everybody. So
It's my loyalty.
so thank you again, Bharat. It was a fascinating discussion. Hope to talk to you again, maybe mid of this year when the rules come out and what it entails specifically at that point. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Great pleasure talking to you from 2 different time zones as well. Hope to meet you all soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bharat.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Bye.